All right, what's going on? My name is Jacques. I'm a screenwriter from Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, especially now. Especially now, because I honestly just finished my second short recently, like
Hmm.
2 days ago. And it's kind of like a split because I had a challenge. My friends challenged me a lot. Had a challenge. So I came up with it in like overnight and I worked on it for like 2 days. And apparently that's the best thing I ever discussed. Cause I have a lot of ideas that I discuss with people, but like physically right,
Hmm.
that's apparently that was the best one.
Now, do you, being that it's a short, do you keep the budget in mind when you write, or you just write?
I do. I think about everything. See, I'm glad you asked that. That's a good question for me because when I first started to write, I felt like I was too many roles on the script. Like I was the director, the producer, the screenwriter. Like if that means like I was given too much. Like it was almost a novel at this point.
Hmm.
So yeah, I do. I think about all that. Like because I see like the way my mind works. I see the movie like as I write it and before I write it, like from beginning to end.
Hmm.
So everything in my head, I tend to like write down, and I'm learning that it doesn't work that way. So I'm learning.
Okay. All
I'm
right. Well, I
learning.
know you, I know you see, I know you say you see it from beginning to end, but what do you see first? Do you see the end first, or do you see the beginning first?
The beginning.
Okay.
I start from the very beginning.
Okay.
Of course, it'll start with the whole concept or what I wanted to surround about and stuff like that. But like visually, I see it from beginning to end.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, of course, I always go back. Even when I'm done, I go back, but like, this a little better, or maybe this will give them a better whoa moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
are you more in a comedy, drama, sci-fi? What?
Honestly, everything. And I can tell a story about anything, but my favorite genre personally would be horror. I'm more funny personally, like, as a person,
Yeah.
but my main interest of storytelling is honestly horror.
Okay.
But it ranges. I can tell a story about literally anything in any genre.
Yeah. What?
Musical.
What is it about horror that kind of resonates with you? What draws you into horror?
Oh, that's a good question. The creativity that can be brought into the storytelling, and I don't feel like it widens my mind as well.
Hmm.
Because it can be based off something realistic or a true story, but for the most part, your imagination is going to tell most of that story. For me, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a big horror guy, but I see what you're saying because it just seems like you could go with somebody under the bed, someone in the closet. And as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, horror can be comedy, it could be comedic, like
Right.
zombie, by like Zombie Land or whatever, but it also could be sci-fi. So
Yeah.
yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are some of your top horror films?
My top horror films, the remake of Evil Dead, I
Hmm.
would say, like all the Texas Chainsaw Massacres,
Okay.
all the all the Chuckies. That's hard because it really ranges. I just come. That's what's coming
But
off the
yeah,
top of
but
my head.
are you the Halloween fan? Are you the Freddy Krueger fan, or those are just too basic for you?
I wouldn't say they're too basic, but out of those type of franchise, I would probably say Chucky
Okay.
because that was like that. That's because this fun Chucky's fun is like now they made him like funny
Yeah,
and
yeah.
scary. So I
Hmm.
would say Chucky out of that category
Okay. Yeah.
of horror.
Have you watched
But I also like
the new Chris Rock one, Spiral? I think that's what it's called.
not yet. I'm waiting on it though. I'm waiting on it. It's definitely on my list.
Wait.
I do like Saw. I like that type of disturbing horror
Okay.
too. I like
Okay.
the Ryan Murphy type of horror, like the American Horror Story
Yeah,
horror.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
like
but
that too.
but American horror seems a little bit more Stephen Kingish, right? Like it seems like they
Yeah,
have a story that's going behind it.
yeah, yeah. Probably worse than Stephen King. Yeah, Ryan Murphy, they're on their own. I think they're the next best thing to hell
Yeah.
type thinking.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So has do you think horror has progressed? Like, well, I guess my question is this: like, is horror better now because there are special effects? Do you think that's made horror better, or do you think it's made it worse?
oh, oh, that's a good question. Oh, that's a real good question. I would say I wouldn't say it made it better, because with a lot of this story, just like with the original Evil Dead, like it was perfect for its time, and it didn't have the effects that we have now at all. And to me, it was one of the best horror movies in its time.
Okay.
So now a lot of people kind of got leverage over it now, because there is a lot of horror movies that have more effects than they do like actual horror and storytelling.
Yeah.
So I would say they had it better back in the day. Like storytellers had it easier because you can kind of cheat with it with the effects now. If that makes sense.
That's true. That's true.
If that answers your question.
No, but that answers the question, and that's absolutely true. I didn't think about it that way, but when you think about it, some movies probably put more emphasis on the special effects than the storytelling, because they can do that, right? And that kind of cheapens the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the only one I would say like today that does it justice to me would be the Conjuring franchise.
Yeah.
Like they have the effects and the actual story that's equal, and they both terrify you. It's not just one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are your shorts about horror, or are they about something else?
Not yet. I haven't got to a horror short yet. The first one was a comedy, and then I just challenged myself with an animation.
How are you training yourself? What are you doing to get better? Like, are you writing every day? Like, tell me what your regimen is.
I honestly don't write as much as I should.
Okay.
But I do a lot of research.
There you go.
Really. And I read articles and books and stuff. Like I have the Screenwriter's Bible. I go through it a lot because there's a lot I have to remember and refresh myself on. And I be staying connected. I watch like YouTube videos and stuff. Like I watch a lot of behind the scenes of stuff. Like I probably watch that more than I watch actual programs. So that's how I say I stay, educated.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess this is like a two-part question. Tell me one thing that you found out about screenplay writing that is what you thought it is. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I thought this was it, and yeah, this is what it is. And then tell me one thing that you kind of found out that, oh, I didn't know that I had to do this, or I had to do that, or this was tougher, or this was easier.
Oh, that's a good question. I guess nobody never had an opportunity to ask me that. So what I would say that I felt like I always knew, like in a script, what you see on TV, the writer did all that, from like the movement, everything that the story tells is what we literally created. And I pretty much always figured that. Now, honestly, what I didn't know, and this is probably should be common sense, what I didn't know, like in a shooting script, I didn't know that the writer places like the angles and how it's shot and everything.
Okay.
That's why I didn't know that we did that.
Okay.
And that was cool to me.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably think that I should have known that, but I honestly didn't.
Well, not really. The reason why you probably should not have known that is because most people who write short films also direct and edit them themselves, right? Like, so you might write the script, so you're writing the dialogue for the characters, but you already kind of have a visual in your mind that you would put that more on a storyboard than you would inside of a script or screenplay. Right. Yeah. And so for a screenplay that you're trying to sell to Hollywood, you need to be a little bit more elaborate and be a little bit more deliberate about camera angles. So yeah. So I wouldn't hold that against you. Not at all.
All right. That makes me feel a lot better. I would love to start on like YouTube, just providing, short stories or screenplays for YouTubers. Like the first short I wrote, I specifically wrote it to, try to provide or sell it to a YouTuber. And I have some in mind. I just haven't went that far with it yet.
Okay. Yeah. Do your scripts, are they, how far removed are they from some of the shows that you watched? Or do you see some dynamics from your shows that you watch in your scripts? Or do you think they're just totally original?
I would say they're totally original. Yeah, that was a good question. They're definitely totally original. Like with the first short I wrote, like it's a comedy. And honestly, there's nothing that I watch right now that I would say is on the same pedestal as probably 20s on BET. that's probably the only thing I can think of that I've watched that's like similar to on the same world, or Insecure probably. But there's nothing that I would see in that short that I was like, they did that there, or I got that there. But that's like the same spectrum I would put it on. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of Insecure, do you think you can write for ladies? Do you think you can write dialogue for women?
Honestly, yeah. Honestly.
Okay.
That was another good question. You got some good questions, bro.
Well, thank you.
That's the reason why I say I can write dialogue for ladies, because honestly, I grew up with a lot of female friends. They talk to me, so I understand a lot of their perspectives. So that's why I feel like I would be able to do that. That was a good question.
Okay. I mean, I guess the reason why I asked that is because you can push back if you want to. I think it's kind of difficult for a man to write for a woman, and I see that I believe in movies as well as in TV shows, and I think vice versa. I think it's difficult for Shonda Rhimes to write for men, and I think that's part of the reason why you see her. I'm speaking of this and never watched any of her shows. Like I've never seen not one episode of How to Get Away with Murder. I've never seen not one show of Grey's Anatomy. But from a character development perspective, like her leading roles are women. But I get that and I see that because she is a woman.
Yeah, I get your point. It makes sense. Now, I disagree as a creator myself.
Okay,
It made sense. It made sense. Honestly, you just made me come up with a challenge for myself. Now I'm going to write a short for women and have them and see what the women around me feel.
There you go. I like that. Yeah, just write some dialogue and just ask them, would a woman say that? And for example, like I've watched a few episodes of Power, right? Okay, and I might be getting this wrong because when I say few, I mean maybe 3, 4 at the most. All right, out of all these episodes, but I think I'm familiar with the characters. So Ghost's wife, right? Like her character. And then I think the attorney, the Latina attorney, I don't think that either one of those, and again, I know this is story, I know this is make-believe, but I don't think that their characters are very close to what we would see in the real world. You agree or disagree? Yeah, you agree or disagree?
Neither one of them?
Neither one of them.
Definitely Tasha, the wife. Okay. She was definitely realistic. Honestly, I don't really know a lot of police people like that in my life, so Angela, I really can't say honestly.
Okay.
But when it comes to the Tasha character, and then the way it was put together, it made sense where I can see it being realistic. But I get that's another good point that you have though.
Okay.
But I can see Tasha being like that was real. Like she was relatable for me. I know a lot of Tashas.
So you know a lot of so she was ride or die to the fullest. Am I right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Even when she probably shouldn't have been.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now that part, I like what you said right there when you say even when she shouldn't have been. I see a lot of that. I don't necessarily know if I see the ones who are making the right decision.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Ghost, in my opinion, Ghost didn't care about nobody. To me, Ghost was the villain.
Speaking of Insecure and speaking of Power, do you think that Hollywood has some type of responsibility of how they portray characters, especially of minorities?
I do. Like when you say that, do they have when you say that, like, is there a certain way they have to do it?
I guess not so much the certain way that they have to do it, but like in Power, P-Valley, most of the shows that you've talked about, with the exception of Insecure, there's a lot of like the main character is a drug dealer, right? If I'm not like, I think you say P-Valley, right? You watch P-Valley?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I do watch that.
So I guess it was like Power, P-Valley. What was it? Empire with Lee Daniels? It was Empire, right?
Yeah.
All of those shows kind of have a familiar and reoccurring theme where the main character is a drug dealer, right? Like we don't have a doctor, we don't have a lawyer. So I'm wondering what are your thoughts on that? And so maybe my question is a little bit misleading or wrong. My question really is like, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. That's a good question. So I mean, there's a story for everybody. So I mean, for the people like myself that know drug dealers or into that type of storytelling, we need and want that type of content.
Okay.
And then for the doctors and people that's into that, they need that type of content as well. So all minds and all ideas should be welcome. Is how I would answer that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a good question because I can honestly see myself working on a project such as P Valley, and then something like Grey's Anatomy and Dora the Explorer. Like my mind is that wide, and my stories are, it's just endless to me. So that's how I would answer that. I feel like all stories are welcome. All stories are for everybody. Everybody needs it.
Right. But I'm glad you said that you're very versatile, right? Like your mind can go in can create several different stories. And so I guess that's really my I say gripe, or not necessarily complaint, but my thoughts are, I know that a young brother like yourself can come up with stories, like you said, for Dora the Explorer, Grey's Anatomy, and also Power. I think we are heavily inundated. We are saturated like rain with Power, P Valley. You understand what I'm saying or no?
Yeah. I feel you. And honestly, as a filmmaker, like if that was presented to me like by a production, I can work with that and I can respect that. And I'm all pretty much just all about giving people what they want. So for whatever is needed, that's what I'm here to tell, honestly.
Okay.
My story list is endless, so I can pick from anything that I already thought of.
Yeah.
So my question would be what you need.
well, listen. So given that, okay, so you're telling me you can write whatever. So you basically saying, look, whatever the studio asks you to write, you can write. So given that, what part of you would be in your work? Like, what would we know about you? You see, like for example, like if we listen to a Jill Scott song, or you listen to an Usher song or Drake or whatever, and it's not so much Drake, but a lot of that artist is in the creativity or in the work. I would argue to say that also Shonda Rhimes, a lot of her is in the characters that she creates for all her shows, right? And so I'm trying to figure out from you, like, what part of you do you think would be in your characters or the people that you create?
Well, it would probably, honestly, like I would probably need an example of what you want or exactly what I'm creating. But to like generally answer that question, it'll be both. It'll be my imagination and it'll probably be my heart as well. Because I mean, that does make all my stories, but probably majority of my imagination or research. Like if it's something that, especially with like the whole female story, that'll be something I would definitely have to research on. So the information that I gather will pretty much be told from my perspective, my storytelling. Wait, that's how I can answer that question. That was good. Yeah, you're good.
Thank you again, man. If you could go back in time, right? Because you just started doing screenwriting. Would you have started earlier, like in life? And tell me Tell me some other things you would have done earlier in your life to get into the film industry.
Honestly, for starters, I definitely would have went to because when I did go to college, it didn't go for what I wanted to go for, but I definitely would have went for theatrical arts or something around filmmaking for sure. I also would have been doing what I'm doing now when I was younger. I do hate that it took till I was 30 to start my journey, but yeah, those be the main two things. Even though a lot of people tell me I don't need the school, it would just make me feel better personally. So I would say I would go to school for it, and as well as actually do it as a younger age, especially when we had, because I had an Instagram since I was like 22. I could have been doing that then, so.
Yeah. Has it been fun so far?
Yes, it has. It's crazy.
Okay.
Like even like talking to you now, like this is not something I saw myself doing a year ago.
Absolutely.
This is crazy.
Absolutely.